Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Xtra.
It's November 2nd, 2014. Welcome to ABC-7 Xtra. I'm Maria Garcia. Glad you're with us. Tonight, we're bringing you a debate between the candidates for Texas's congressional district, the 16th congressional district. Democrat Beto O'Rourke, elected in 2012, wants to go back to Washington. A lifelong El Pasoan, the former city representative wants to continue his work, he says, creating opportunities for the border and for veterans. He also wants to focus on being accessible and accountable. The Republican challenger is Lieutenant Colonel Corey Rowan, a career Army officer who served overseas and has received several commendation medals. He also serves as president of his marketing company. Among his priorities, he says, job creation and securing the border. And the Libertarian candidate, Jaime O. Perez, he's been a teacher and a business owner, and says he wants to bring focus to reducing the country's deficit and a better tax structure. There's a lot at stake here. A lot of important issues that our lawmakers in Washington have to deal with. ISIS, veterans, the economy, Ebola, immigration. Time permitting, we're going to try to tackle all of those issues, and we want to hear from you. If you have questions for the candidates, make sure to email me tonight at ABC-7 Xtra at KVIA.com. You can also tweet me at MariaGABC7 or using the hashtag ABC7 Xtra. So let's get right to it. Joining me tonight, incumbent Beto O'Rourke, Republican challenger Corey Rowan, and Libertarian challenger Jaime O. Perez. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So let's get straight to the issues. ISIS, a lot of people talking about that. The Obama administration has pretty much admitted they underestimated ISIS, taking over practically every city up to the Iraqi border in Syria. We do know that initially the Obama administration thought there were about 10,000 ISIS fighters. Now we know they have 30,000 plus. Several analysts saying that airstrikes just are not enough. Would you support more troops in Iraq? We'll start with you, Congressman.
I don't know. What we're missing right now in Iraq and the larger Middle East, for that matter, is a thoughtful, strategic approach to the issues, the peoples, and the countries there. It's why I'm 42 years old now, and when I was a senior in high school, we first announced airstrikes in Iraq. We've been in some form or other at war in Iraq for more than 20 years now. And I do not think that the current strategy with airstrikes and some so-called moderate opposition forces in Syria is going to do enough to achieve our aims, in part because this country has failed yet to define our aims and what success looks like, what a win would be, and what our exit strategy is. Until we go through the formal process of declaring war, which is outlined in the U.S. Constitution, I don't think we will take the deliberation, the debate, and have the discussions necessary to come up with that necessary strategy. I am a voice for doing that in Congress, and that's why I voted against this most recent action. Okay.
The Republican challenger, Corey Rowan, we move on to you. Would you support troops in Iraq? More troops?
As the only veteran sitting here on the platform tonight, and someone who's actually been in Iraq within the last 24 months, I know a lot what it's like going over there. So I understand that soldiers do what soldiers do, and they go where soldiers are supposed to go. But right now, we don't have really what the mission is. As a military planner, which I've done for almost the last 30 years, we got to look at what the mission is. What is the mission, and then figure out from there if we need to put troops on the ground. So personally, I think it's a huge security issue for the United States right now. This isn't just some social program that maybe we should cut or not. We really need to secure our borders to make sure that we have a strong national defense here. But I'm for putting more soldiers over there. We don't necessarily need to put soldiers that are going to go and attack, but we should be building up a strong national defense because ISIS has said they want to come to the United States and kill us.
Now, right now, the 800 soldiers that are there, they're either securing the Baghdad airport or securing the U.S. Embassy. Are you saying we should send more soldiers there to do more things than that?
Number one, we shouldn't be telling them that we're not going to send soldiers in, like President Obama has done. So we shouldn't say that. But soldiers should be trained up right now in the United States and forward deployed either in Kuwait or Iraq, and just, you know, a strong defense. Let people know that we're there, and if you go over that, cross that line, we'll be there to, we don't have to wait 6 months to get Army mobilized.
Okay, all right. And moving on to the Libertarian candidate, Jaime Perez, would you support more troops in Iraq?
Absolutely not. The real problem, or what's really going on, is that the economy is close to imploding because of the huge debt that we have. So the thinking in Washington is that the only way that you can prop up the economy is by creating a war, and through the military expenditure, through the funding of the military-industrial complex, you'll be able to prop up the economy. That's what's really going on. And evidence of that is just what my colleagues just said, because when the congressman says that we don't know who we're fighting, we don't know how it's all happening, and so on, it is evidence of the fact that ISIS has gone strong, ISIL has gone strong with equipment that was left behind. So here we have an exit strategy, the economy is imploding, so now we're trying to figure out how to get back in.
Okay. All right, I want to talk about veterans. They fight for our country. They do what many people aren't brave enough to do. Yet when they get back home, they just can't see a doctor. It takes them a long time to see a doctor for serious illnesses, even for preventative care. Some veterans even though say they believe that the government whitewashes reports instead of holding the VA accountable for long wait times. A clear example of this, they say, is the lead investigator looking into long wait times at the Phoenix VA concluded that he was unable to conclusively assert that long delays at the Phoenix VA healthcare system had caused patients to die. And some veterans say there's clear evidence that these veterans couldn't see a doctor, and that some of them, if they could have, they would have still been living. So what is your response to these veterans? And we'll start with you, Mr. Roy.
Again, as a veteran myself who receives his medical care at the El Paso VA, I know all too well the issues over there. So when I came back from deployment last year, one of the first stops I made was over there to make sure I was registered so I could get some of the injuries that I occurred over there last year fixed. They were pretty good about getting me in and you know, setting me up with status and giving me an ID card. But then after that, after my initial appointment, I was really having a lot of difficulties getting follow-up appointments. So it's critical. One of my top priorities will be taking care of my fellow brethren who have served in combat like I have.
But how do you do that? How do you keep people accountable in the VA? That seems to be the problem. We seem to acknowledge there's a problem, but how do you get the people in charge to own up to that problem and to fix it?
Accountability, number one. Now, there was a bill that was passed in August that was really pretty good that I would have supported, but it hasn't went to that next step. In Stars and Stripes, even this morning, the Senate is basically saying that the new VA administrators really not putting that bill into full implementation. So we pass legislation, but it doesn't always get acted upon and put into play as quickly as it should.
Okay. And Mr. Bettis, what would you do?
Well, the most important thing, of course, is to put it in the radar of the Congress, and I think that Congressman O'Rourke has done that to a large extent, certainly representing the 16th Congressional. I think a little more has to be done, but the most important thing is just to focus attention on the problem, and that's really the crux of the matter. Now, that said, that's a good example of why we should not be going to war. The number of suicides in the military is enormous. The PTSD that returning veterans is huge. I mean, we have very, very serious problems. And if we aren't capable as a nation to take care of the people that are going to go fight for us, how can we then ask more people to go and be suffering the same condition? So the important thing is to keep talking about it and to keep working on programs to deal with the issue.
Now, it seems though like people are talking about it. You know, we've seen congressional hearings about it, but nobody seems to own up to the problem. Congressman O'Rourke.